Hello there, everybody. Hello there, and welcome back to the channel. To my new people, I hope you hit the subscribe button. Check out some of my videos. To everybody else, welcome back. About a week ago, I had posted a video that the prison strike has come to an end. And it is possible that I put that title up a bit prematurely from the way it seems things are going. Um, at this time, a majority or a great deal of the correctional officers have returned to work. The information that was put forth was that Governor Hochul struck a deal with the prisons union and that the strike had come to an end and everybody would go to work as of Saturday, which was yesterday. But that was not the reality. Many have returned to work. Thousands of officers have returned to work. Um, but some continue to strike, as you see from the news and you see from other videos out there. The deal that was made is that Governor Hochul agreed to give them more overtime pay, agreed to the ability to cut overtime as well, so they wouldn't have to work double and triple shifts. But if they did, they would get a higher pay. They would get 2.5 times the pay. She agreed to some of the HALT Act to be revised on a temporary basis. So certain things were agreed upon and signed, but a group of correctional officers has continued to strike. And at this time, Letitia James, who is the Attorney General, has filed suit against 330 of those officers. They are facing the loss of their health care now. They are losing 2 days' pay for every day they stay on strike. And they are also close to being incarcerated. I don't know if that will actually happen, but they can be put in jail for defying the court order that they return to work and for continuing this strike, which is illegal under the Taylor law. So these officers that are still striking at this time are criminal. It has fallen into the criminal aspect. They are breaking the law by staying out there. There have been court orders that they should return to work. Now, for you or I to fight a court order, they would be knocking on our door and taking us to jail. That's the truth. You have a court order against you and you violate that court order, a warrant will be issued for your arrest and they will incarcerate you and put you in front of a judge. So these striking correctional officers are getting some leeway because a deal was made, but obviously that deal is not good enough for them. They want the complete overhaul of the HALT Act. That's one thing that they want, the complete overhaul of the HALT Act. They want any limit on solitary confinement suspended. And absolutely not. I don't just say that because I'm a formerly incarcerated individual. Suspending the length that someone can stay in solitary confinement is barbaric because, for a fact, the correctional officers have abused solitary confinement for decades and decades inside of the prison system. Giving someone a year or 2 years in solitary confinement for a dirty urine for marijuana is a gross abuse of solitary confinement. Putting someone in solitary confinement for 60 days, 90 days, which is 3 months, 4 months, because they have tattoo paraphernalia to do tattoos is an abuse. Sticking men in solitary confinement for nonviolent offenses in itself for extended period of times is abuse of the system. There is no doubt that solitary confinement causes permanent, lifelong psychological damage to people. So for those who have the argument, well, they're criminals anyway, and they put themselves in prison, and then when they were in prison, they decided to break another rule. So who cares if they get put in solitary confinement? That's fine. Put them in solitary confinement, but there has to be a time limit on that solitary confinement. And what the HALT Act said was 15 days was the maximum, and that if the person needed more than 15 days, they can go to the RRU unit, which was a unit set up separate from the population for men who needed to be separated, and they would find and encounter educational programs in there, right? So the HALT Act was actually something that was pretty decent of a setup system, right? And this comes from worldwide views, not the view of New York State and not the view of just the United States of America. This comes from countries worldwide, human rights people who have determined through psychologists, therapists, and social workers that they have found that extended solitary confinement causes terrible, lifelong psychological problems on the people who are subjected to it, right? It also causes tremendous physical problems. They are not only separating the person from the general population when they put them in solitary, they are depriving them of personal belongings. They are depriving them of proper nutrition. They are depriving them of proper exercise. Letting a prisoner out for 60 minutes a day inside of a cage is not uh, uh, healthy or should not be considered the proper amount of recreation to let someone out for 60 minutes in a dog cage, right? These correctional officers would like to continue to abuse solitary confinement. And there needs to be some oversight. And I said part of the answer to that question, part of the answer to that problem, part of the solution to that problem is letting civilians handle the disciplinary hearings of the prisoners, right? Civilians that go into the Department of Corrections and handle hearings only. That is their responsibility, not civilians that work in the prison and cave under the pressure to the correctional officer. That's not satisfactory. You need a separate entity to come in and handle these disciplinary hearings to determine whose crime or whose infraction is worthy of extended solitary confinement. We're talking 5 out of 6 people are in solitary confinement for something that's nonviolent. So if you do something that's nonviolent, you think I should lock you in a room for 90 days, for 4 months, for 6 months, for 8 months for a nonviolent offense? This is what the officers were doing, right? And they would just, I don't know what type of job they think they signed up for. If they thought they signed up to work in Disneyland, they signed up to work with convicted felons who were criminals, right? And there's going to be some challenges. But you can't just lock them in a room for a year or two at a time because you don't feel like dealing with it. That's not the way it works. But that's the way that correctional officers have been working it. And that's why they continue to strike, because that's the main thing that they want. Because Kathy Hochul revised the HALT Act for a little bit. Kathy Hochul, I'm not a Kathy Hochul fan, but she revised the HALT Act a little bit. She gave them more money. She's cutting the overtime so they don't have to work extended shifts. What else do they want? Right? And so they have become criminal by refusing to go back to work. They have broken the law, continue to break the law. They've defied a court order, right? And so, as I said, Letitia James has now filed suit on 330 of them. The problem is to give these thousands of striking officers hearings and put them in front of a judge is hard because that takes a lot of time. The system is very busy right now. But that's the reason why correctional officers are still striking. They really want to deal with this HALT Act. They're not happy, right? But thousands have gone back to work. So yes, in essence, the strike is still, even though a deal was made and even though thousands of them went back to work, the strike is still continuing, a percentage of it, right? And that's where we're at right now. As you know, the National Guard was in there. I think she was up to 6,000 National Guardsmen, right? They're complaining about the conditions inside of the prison, that the conditions are deplorable. They were showing what the showers look like, what the sinks look like, what the floors look like. It's really an unsettling situation and an unsanitary situation. You know, prisoners are being found dead inside of their cells. So there's so much going on right now, and it's going to come to a head in some way. But I just wanted to give you a quick fill in if you haven't heard about what's happening. I don't know when these officers plan on stopping their strike, but I don't think she's going to let them go too much longer. My answer to stop the strike would be to get them off of the state land that they're striking on. If it's against the law to strike, how are they allowing that to take place on property that belongs to the state? So maybe they should bring the water hoses out and get that in control. We'll see what happens. So that's what's going on there right now.